Hebrew University in Jerusalem. He taught for 17 years at the University of Utah, and he didn't lose his testimony, which is good. And the Salt Lake and Jerusalem Center of BYU. He has published 8 books and more than 200 articles and is associate editor in the Issachar Quorum's Ancient Text and Mormon Studies series. While many of his writings have appeared in books, magazines, and journals for the Latter-day Saint audience, some of his works have been published by the University of Utah, the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, Pontifical Biblical Institute, and the Journal of Near Eastern Studies. He's a convert to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and has served in numerous positions, including a full-time mission in France and Switzerland, and stake in district missions in Utah and Israel. I'm assuming that was the French-speaking part of Switzerland? So it wasn't the one and only true German-speaking mission that Dan Peterson and I went to. In any case, Dan and I, we both went to that mission. John is a frequent speaker at our conferences. We really appreciate his services and appreciate all that he gives for us. So John Tvedtnes.
I know what those of you who heard me speak last year are all thinking, isn't that the same shirt and tie and suit that you wore last time?
Yeah.
Well, I don't get many opportunities to attend church in my mafia uniform. So. My presentation is entitled The Charge of Racism in the Book of Mormon. And since I read a lot better than I speak, I'm going to read. I thank Margaret Hauer for setting up and warming up this audience for me with this topic. Let me begin by noting that as one trained in anthropology, I abhor the term race, and I have tried to avoid using it for several decades. I view human beings as a spectrum with a wide variety of skin colors and other physical features. Humans of all sorts are much more like their fellows, even in distant parts of the world, than some breeds of dogs are to others. Physical differences among humans that have been used to define race can often be found within families. My brother, for example, has black hair and a rather swarthy complexion, while in my youth I was very fair-skinned and my hair was almost white. I always wished, by the way, that it was curly and brown, and if it finally became curly and brown, I'd go back to the platinum blonde and straight so I don't have to wet it down so much when I comb it. One of the boys I knew in elementary school looked like he had just stepped out of the Neanderthal mural at the American Museum of Natural History. He had a large upper torso, strongest kid I ever knew, a very pronounced brow ridge, a mandible that jutted out beyond his nose. He was so strong it took 3 of us to subdue him when he started beating up on a younger boy one day. Having said that, let's see what the Book of Mormon racism issue is all about. I put that in quotes. Determined to read the Book of Mormon in purely naturalistic 19th century terms rather than as an ancient text, recent criticisms of that volume of scripture are offended by some descriptions of Lamanites in the text. This is particularly true when the Nephites describe the Lamanites in pejorative terms such as bloodthirsty, idolatrous, ferocious, idle, lazy, and filthy. The question is whether these terms can be considered racist, and whether supposed racist attitudes of the Nephites are evidence against the authenticity of the Book of Mormon. To the latter, we must conclude that racism does not impact the truth of the history of the Book of Mormon any more than it would impact the truth of the biblical account, which frequently disapproves of marrying foreigners. Was Jesus being racist when he declined to bless the Canaanite woman, saying, "It is not meet that the children's bread be taken and cast to dogs"? Or was he merely employing a saying of the time to illustrate the point that he had just made, that he was not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel? I tend to believe it's the latter, by the way. Because the critics consider Joseph Smith to be the real author of the Book of Mormon, they see its supposed racist epithets as reflecting 19th century American views rather than the views of the ancient Nephites. This, however, ignores some important facts. First of all, there is no evidence, other than later hearsay, to indicate that Joseph Smith believed that skin color made someone inferior. On the other hand, there is clear evidence that he considered black Africans to be just as capable as whites, given the same opportunities, and he favored freeing the slaves. A second point, at least 2 black men were ordained as elders during Joseph Smith's time, and the prophet himself signed the ordination certificate of Elijah Abel when he was ordained elder. Later, of course, he became a 70 and served on missions for the church. The Book of Abraham, frequently cited by later generations as evidence that blacks should not be ordained to the priesthood, says actually nothing about skin color at all, and in any event describes the struggle over patriarchal authority between Abraham and the Egyptian king. One cannot read into the text anything about Egyptus being a descendant of Cain or having a black skin. Indeed, the idea of Ham having married a Canaanite woman was prevalent among 19th century American Protestants, whence Latter-day Saints picked up the idea. I'm going to deal with that, by the way, in a review of a book entitled Noah's Curse, the biblical justification for 19th century American slavery. It's rather interesting that this is where it came from. That wasn't invented by Joseph Smith or Brigham Young. Could the Nephites have been racist in their views of the Lamanites? Perhaps, in the same sense that the biblical patriarchs were racist when it came to their pagan neighbors, the Hittites, the Canaanites, and the Amorites, and did not want their offspring to marry these unbelievers. But once the Lamanites had been converted to the Nephite religion, the barriers separating these people dissolved. Even before they were converted, the Nephites considered the Lamanites to be brethren, a term used more than 50 times in reference to the Lamanites in the Book of Mormon. I actually counted 55, but I thought if I said 55, somebody's going to prove me wrong by counting only 54 or counting 56. This is hardly a term, the term brethren, that one would expect to find in a society that holds racist views of the neighboring people. And if Joseph Smith's racism is reflected in the Book of Mormon, why does that volume have large numbers of Lamanites becoming good guys and indeed more righteous than the Nephites in the decades before Christ's appearance? Was dark skin really a curse pronounced on the Lamanites by God? That seems to be the general consensus, but what does the Book of Mormon really say? Speaking to Nephi, the Lord distinguished between the curse and the mark. I quote from Alma 3:14, which is a citation from the Lord speaking to Nephi. Behold, the Lamanites have I cursed, and I will set a mark on them, that they and their seed may be separated from thee and thy seed. At the time this promise was given to Nephi, the curse had already been enforced, while the mark, a change in skin color, was yet future. The Lord also told Nephi that others, including his own posterity, who mingled with the Lamanites, would be both cursed and marked. I quote again here from Alma 3:15, 17. And again I will set a mark upon him that mingleth his seed with thy brethren, that they may be cursed also. And again I will set a mark upon him that fighteth against thee and against thy seed. And again I say, he that departeth from thee shall no more be called thy seed. And I will bless thee, and whomsoever shall be called thy seed, henceforth and forever. And these were the promises of the Lord unto Nephi and his seed. So some are called his seed, even though they're not really his seed, and some of his real descendants are no longer going to be called Nephites. Nephi described how the Lamanites, as a result of their consistent rebellion against God and the hardness of their hearts, were cursed by being cut off from the presence of God. And that's the very terminology used in 2 Nephi chapter 5, verse 20. This curse also resulted in the Lamanites being separated from God's people with the departure of Nephi. That's in 2 Nephi 5, 1-7. In connection with the curse of separation, the Lord is said to have set a mark upon the Lamanites. The purpose of the mark, according to the Book of Mormon, was to distinguish the Lamanites from the Nephites, so that the Nephites would not intermarry with them and accept incorrect traditions. After Nephi had led away those who would follow him, he wrote, And behold, the words of the Lord had been fulfilled unto my brethren, which he spake concerning them, that I should be their ruler and their teacher. Wherefore I have been their ruler and their teacher, according to the commandments of God, until the time they sought to take away my life. Wherefore the word of the Lord was fulfilled, which he spake unto me, saying that inasmuch as they will not hearken unto thy words, they shall be cut off from the presence of the Lord. And behold, they were cut off from his presence, because of Nephi's departure, of course. And he had caused the cursing to come upon them, yea, even a sore cursing because of their iniquity.